Hello, how's it going, everybody? This is Ask Me Anything About Politics. So, if you got any questions about politics, just let me know in the chat, and I will do my best to give you a great answer. I know the politics can be really intimidating when you're first trying to learn about it. I know that it's particularly confusing these days with all of the misinformation and propaganda that is out there. So, where can you turn? Where can you go to figure out what's accurate and what's not accurate? Where can you go to discuss the things that you don't feel comfortable discussing in public? The questions that you're too embarrassed to ask the people that you know? This is the place where you can ask all those questions. This is the place where you can ask your questions without any kind of fear of ridicule or judgment or debate. It is just going to be good faith answers to all of your good faith questions. There's no fighting here, there's no debating. It is just good faith answers. If you want one of those shows where people yell at each other, this is not it. This is the only that everybody's welcome here. You know, Republicans, Democrats, all different flavors of the political spectrum. If you're further to the left than me, if you're further to the right than me, you are all welcome here. And you're not going to get judged based on your questions. You don't got to worry about, oh, if I ask this question, he's going to think I'm some sort of MAGA person, or oh, if I ask this question, he's going to think I'm some sort of cuck libtard. There's no judgments here at all. So, regardless of what your political leanings are and what your question makes it seem like your political leanings are, you will get nothing but good faith answers to all of your questions here. AJC says, "What do you think is the worst case scenario for America?" Worst case scenario is that people do not do the work to counter the efforts of the Republican Party to steal every election going forward. So obviously, the Republican Party is going to be doing a lot to suppress the votes, potentially intimidate voters. The Trump administration could potentially declare martial law or invoke the Insurrection Act, seize ballot machines. Like, all of that stuff can be undone if people do the work. If we get a lot of people on board with the movement of making sure that our elections continue to be free and fair. If we don't get people to do that work, then they will succeed in stealing the election. And every election that they steal, every seat that they win, every victory that they get at entrenching themselves in power only makes the work that much harder going forward. So, if we're looking at stolen elections in 26 and 28, I don't really know. How long it will take us to recover from that, but it's going to take a very long time. AJC says, "Do you think there'll be another civil war?" I do not. Right now, the American government is kind of declared war on half of its citizens, which I think is a little different than a civil war. But yeah, I don't believe that Democrats are going to be in the streets with guns trying to fight Republicans. Eden Canadia B-side says, "Newsflash, they won't do the work." Well, not with that attitude, Ed, but I'm on here 5 days a fucking week trying to convince people to do the work. And so hopefully that is motivating and activating some people. Josh G. Fishin says, "What do you say to Democrats, parentheses me, who differ from the far left and trans stuff who are pushed to switch?" I would encourage you to not be pushed to the right based on what a bunch of people on the internet are telling you that the far left is. I don't know what person or persons created this idea of what the far left is that you don't vibe with, but I can pretty much guarantee that it's not a real thing. Everybody is pretty darn reasonable in real life, and it's just on the internet where people say things that are batshit bananas to try to push you to a different party. But if you want to get more into it, let me know. Let me know what policies of the far left exist that you think don't mesh with how you feel. And you should also recognize the Democratic Party is a big tent. And so even if you are more conservative in certain social issues, you are still welcome to be a Democrat so long as you can still recognize the benefits of the Democrats' platform and the pain and the destruction of the Republicans' platform. Cole Zine says, "Thoughts on the Great Noticing?" I don't know what that is. East Ed Canadia says, "Last November they proved this. No, that's not what last November proved. Maddie Burns says 2028 MAGA. That's a block. Congratulations. Okay. All right. Kitschy Noodle, good to see you again. Says, does the peace plan legitimize the Dems and independents that didn't vote for Kamala in 2024? I don't think so. There's already been exponentially more pain and suffering in Palestine because Kamala Harris lost the election. I do not believe that we needed 8 months before we had the hostages released. I also don't believe that just because the hostages are released means that Israel is going to stop their extremist, uh, you know, war crimes and genocide on the people of Palestine. Um, you know, it's possible, but yeah, I believe that Kamala Harris could have got this better and sooner. Okay, content or not says ask me anything, blocks you. Well, she didn't ask me anything. She didn't ask me anything. She literally said MAGA 2028. And so there we go. You, sir, need more copies. Says your thoughts on Qatari new Air Force Base in Idaho. So it's not an Air Force base. They are just being trained to operate the planes that we sold them. Okay, Kitchen Noodle says Trump and Biden had very similar deals. The only difference is that Trump put his foot down. I don't think that is the only difference, Kitchen Noodle. I think that, Biden was way too permissible of the things that Netanyahu was doing. Trump has openly advocated for the things that Netanyahu is doing. And so there's definitely a difference. The Biden administration put sanctions on illegal Israeli settlements in the West Bank, and he stopped sending Bibi Netanyahu 2,000-pound bombs. And the Trump administration reversed that. And I do not believe that Netanyahu goes so far as to bomb like 8 of his neighboring countries if we have a Democrat in office who is putting pressure on him to stop. Also, the difference is that Netanyahu was incentivized to do a deal with Trump instead of doing one with Biden or Harris because he is trying to forward an extremist right wing agenda and he is not going to do anything that helps the Democratic Party in America. Okay, CJ Olson says, you don't know that though. Yes, I do. Turner Boy Matt says, thoughts on Mills entering the Senate race against Plattner? It's so fucking stupid. I'm pretty sure it's a she. She's old, right? Or he's old. Like, don't. You're old. Don't do this. Don't be an old person running for Senate. Don't do it. We have too many old people in there already. Stop, please. Don't do this. Corn Nugget says, are you a political science major? No. John Abbott says, the deal that they just agreed to is one that the Biden administration negotiated last year, an agreement that died a few days after Netanyahu met with Trump at Mar-a-Lago. Yeah, like I said, John, Netanyahu was incentivized to continue the war during the Biden administration, both because he wanted Democrats to lose in 24 and also for his own political life and staying out of jail. Kimberlina says, yeah, I heard her ad and it was great, but no. I mean, I'm sure she's fine, but you're old. And we've got Plattner. Plattner seems cool as hell. Until you can show me why Plattner's not cool, fucking dip. Corn Nugget says, politics do nothing for us but create a distraction. That is inaccurate. Politics is also the policies that our government implements and which ones are working and which ones aren't working. And so discussing that stuff and being informed about what our government is doing and what we can do to stop it or help it, depending on the situation, I think is what do you call it? It's essential. Diego Vargas says, why did Trump request a pardon for Netanyahu? So my theory about that is that Netanyahu is incentivized to continue the fighting in Palestine because of his coalition government, which if he does not maintain, he will then no longer be prime minister and will potentially have to go to jail for a long time on corruption charges. Because Trump wants the what do you call it? He wants the accolades from having solved peace in the Middle East. What he's doing is he's trying to say to Netanyahu, like, maybe if you don't go to jail when you're not prime minister, then maybe you won't be pushed by your far right extremist party to continue this fighting. I don't know how effective that's going to be. It could potentially be effective, but yeah, I don't know. That's what I think the move is. But I don't know. I'm skeptical that the far right in Israel is going to be satiated by that. I don't know. Let's see here. Kitschy Doodle says the Dems refusing to endorse real people-backed politicians is why I hate them passionately. I don't think you should hate the Dems passionately because the Democrat Party they have better politicians, in general, and just because some in the leadership don't, have their reasons for not wanting to endorse specific candidates, I don't think that negates all the good of the better politicians in the party or all the good that the party does in general. Okay, Diego Vargas says, "Will this deal help Trump with his approval? Are you satisfied with it?" It might, but I'm not satisfied with it. I will believe that the fighting is over when I see that the fighting is over. But people in Palestine have had a real fucking rough go of it, and I do not believe that the Trump administration is really going to continue putting pressure on the Israeli government to make sure that the people in Palestine are being taken care of. K. Sarah says politics have gotten so ugly. We are in a different reality. I mean, that is entirely the fault of Republican Party politicians and Republican content creators. I'm sure that there are some really shitty individual people on the left, but by and large, all of our people with big megaphones, like our elected politicians and our content creators, are doing nothing but trying to build coalitions and, not trying to spread any hate. Let's see here. Jacob Vargas says, "Who will help Gaza to rebuild their country?" I think that's actually part of the. There's a deal that I don't believe that we've seen the details of, where a bunch of different countries are assisting in rebuilding, and this is where I believe some of the Trump corruption is involved. Where I'm sure that he is going to be, getting some of the back end there. Let's see here. This face says, "At least the Dems have Marjorie Taylor Greene now." I mean, they a stop clock, as the expression goes. Let's see here. CJ Olson says, "How things could have been worse with Biden. You can't just make assumptions and say it's a fact." No, I can. Because I know what Trump did, and I know what Kamala Harris was going to do. Biden was not running for a second term after that debate performance. So, I'm pretty confident that Kamala Harris would not be advocating for ethnic cleansing in Gaza with it the way that Trump was. K. Sarah says both sides are corrupt and do not represent the people. So that is inaccurate, K. Sarah. The Democratic Party is leagues better than the Republican Party. If you'd like me to get into more specifics, I will. But the both sides argument does nothing but give cover for the worst people in politics. Kaiser says Trump is good goy. No, he's not, Kaiser. Sorry. See you later. Righty. Ecuadorian baseball pitcher. Good to see you again. Kaiser Wilhelm, I'm so glad I blocked you. Okay. Bobby Murtaugh says, "Please do. Please do what?" Right. Excellent start to the live stream today, everybody. Welcome to Ask Me Anything About Politics. You can ask me anything that you like. I don't care if you're Republican or Democrat or whatever. As long as you were asking in good faith, you will get a good faith answer. What's up, RK? Good to see you again. Murtaugh says spavery. I don't know what that means. Spavery? Please do spavery. K. Sarah says, "Do you really feel that way?" It's not about how I feel. It's what I know, K. Sarah. It's the data bears it out. The Republican Party politicians lie way more. They are more corrupt. They are advocating for corrupt policies. They are in league with the worst billionaires on the planet. Their platform is worse. Their history is worse, both on the state and federal level. People generally do better under Democrats than Republicans. There's no contest. Okay, let's see here. Kyle actually says, "Do you think Trump's going to try to build the third temple?" I don't know what the third temple is. Kimberlina says, "Disconnected this weekend. Is ceasefire still in place?" Yes, kinda, sorta. I mean, Israel's already violated the ceasefire, but the hostages, I believe, we are in the middle of the process of exchanging hostages for prisoners. Bobby Murtaugh says, "Examples of what?" Again, Bobby, you're gonna have to be more specific. Angela Williams says, "How long do you think the shutdown will last, and who will give in first?" That is not a prediction I feel qualified to make, Angela, and nobody knows that. Also, so Ed says, "What's your opinion on El Salvador's crime policy?" I don't know. I'm That's not my area of expertise, but from what I know, I think it's Bukele is the dictator in charge of El Salvador. He's a brutal dictator who has done a lot of really shitty things in order to quote unquote solve crime. Like he is ignoring people's humanitarian rights. His crackdown on crime has been barbaric. So yeah, I don't think that the ends justify the means. Okay, please and thank you says your opinion on the top 3 civilizations of all time. I don't know. It's Boozy says, why can the left call out things on the right but can't call out their own stuff on the left? So it's Boozy. People on the left do call out their own stuff on the left. In fact, I would argue that there is way too much infighting and friendly fire within the left. But I also think that it's important to recognize that when your apartment is on fire, it's not really worth it arguing about, the bills. Like there's an emergency happening right now, which is that Trump and the Republican Party are doing wildly illegal, unconstitutional things. They are trying to turn our democracy into a fascist dictatorship. They are doing fucking war crimes. They are building concentration camps. Cost of living is skyrocketing. Unemployment is skyrocketing. People's electric bills are quadrupling because we're paying for AI data centers where we're not getting any of that fucking profit at all. And so, where there are a bunch of criticisms that you can make about the Democratic Party and people on the left, seems kind of small to comment on it when all this shit is happening. Diego Vargas says thoughts on MTG. I got no idea what's going on with her doodle, but I guess I'm in favor of it. Josh Woolridge says, "Is this satire?" No. Jim says, "So much information and misinformation out there. Where are your most trusted sources?" So, two-part answer. First part is you just want to avoid right-wing media because right-wing media has been proven time and time again to be exponentially less accurate than every other kind of media that you can get. The last numbers that I saw from PolitiFact say that right-wing media is only 20% accurate. So, other than that, like, how do you avoid bias? How do you filter through misinformation? The key, I think, is to get your news from multiple sources. And so, on any given day, I am getting my news from a combination of legacy media, mainstream media, independent media, progressive media, forward media, in order to try to get a more accurate picture of what is going on. Let's see here. I appreciate you saying that, Ecuadorian baseball pitcher. Thank you so much. Glad that I could help put a smile on your face. Sorry for tomorrow says bad people doing a good thing does. I don't know what that means. Shiny Flybrand says, so what happens if the Insurrection Act is fully enacted? The Insurrection Act is very similar to declaring martial law in that it gives the military more authority to do operations on American soil. So whereas now they are not able to be involved in law enforcement, if the Insurrection Act were, I don't know, declared or martial law was declared, they would then be able to get themselves involved in law enforcement instead. More specific than that, I'm not 100%. Adam says thoughts on moderates and anti two-party system believers. I think that the two-party system has its flaws, but it is not as hyperbolically terrible as people make it out to be. A lot of the problems that people ascribe to the two-party system are really just problems with the Republican Party. As far as moderates are concerned, people are allowed to be moderates if they want to be moderates. That's not where I'm at, but the Democratic Party, the entire point of it is that it should be a big tent that encompasses all the various types of people that exist in America. And so we're going to have people on the far left and we're going to have people on the center left. Oh, wait, excuse me. Shiny Flytrap says, so would you consider the Insurrection Act the first step of martial law? I don't know. It's all like, I don't know. Sometimes I feel like I've listened to a podcast where they talked about this today, where us constantly looking forward towards the next bad thing that Trump can do is kind of like softening the bad things that he's currently doing. Like we're constantly looking for our break glass in case of moments when it's kind of here already. So let's not keep on moving the goalposts like we're there. Nobody says, LMAO, you are far left. Of course, you think Republicans are wrong. I mean, it's not my feeling or my thinking that Republicans are wrong. The data shows that Republicans are wrong. I'm not trying to cast aspersions on Republican voters, of course. All I'm talking about are Republican politicians and Republican talking heads like Ben Shapiro and Alex Jones and Elon Musk and shit. It's Boozy says, only move the goalposts for Democrats. That's it. No, you are. You're not asking a question. It's Boozy. So ask a question or dip. Adam says, we need your data, please. I do not have every data point memorized, but if there's anything that you would ever want me to back up with sources, just shoot me a DM. My evidence for the fact that a lot of people who are challenging me on my live streams don't actually give a shit about having their minds changed or looking at relevant data is that I make this offer every single live stream and almost nobody takes me up on it. You know, there are 10 people who all say, oh, you want the specifics on that? Shoot me a DM and I'll send you the article, I'll send you the study, I'll send you whatever. And they almost never do. So prove me wrong. Prove me wrong that you actually give a shit, that you are open to having your mind changed, that you are not just here to get into a fight, and I will send you the data. The Sky Kinga says, my question is, what is the single most important policy that has ever passed in your opinion? Oh, God, that's a tough one. I mean, Emancipation Proclamation, Civil Rights Act. Yeah, I don't know. Something that's, giving women the right to vote, things that expand our democracy, probably something like that. Okay, nobody says you are one of those people who can't have their minds changed. That is not accurate, nobody. I've had my mind changed many times. And also, you've been warned. That is not a question, so you're out of here. If you ask a question, you don't get booted, guys. That's the rule. It's Boozy says, are you open to having your mind changed about the Republican Party? Absolutely. It's Boozy. I challenge my preconceived notions every single fucking day. I engage with people on the substance every fucking day. So 100%, I am open and willing to being proven wrong here. RK says, why is the US giving Argentina 20 billion for a government bailout? Because I forget if they have a president or what of Argentina. Yeah, I think he's the president. He is libertarian. He's pushing a right wing agenda, and so the people on the right really like him, and they can't have a failed right wing state because then people on the left could point to Argentina and go, "Look, libertarianism doesn't work. They've gone completely fucking bankrupt." And their president, prime minister, whatever, has kissed Trump's ass a whole bunch, and so he's going to do whatever they want because Trump really likes it when people kiss his ass. It's Boozy says, what molded your views about said party? Oh, just like everything they've ever said and done. It's Boozy. I mean, ever since the Reagan administration, the Republican Party has had one ethos, and that has been to cut taxes for the rich. That's it. They have fought unions, they have fought gun control, they have fought climate change, but the one thing that they have put their whole ass on the line for is trickle-down economics, cut taxes for the wealthy, and it will eventually trickle down. But we have been suffering from this for over 50 years. That shit ain't trickling down. It is obvious that they are doing this so that the rich get richer, and that is fucking it. Looking at a history of policies that I think would help and policies that hurt, the Republican Party is always on the side of the things that hurt, and the Democratic Party is always on the side of things that help. Buffalo Trucker says, do you think we can have a strong social safety net and a smaller government at the same time? Yeah, of course. Government efficiency is not something that the Republican Party owns. Everybody wants that. The Republican Party makes it difficult for government to be efficient because they often add red tape to policies that they do not care for. There's a reason why there was a 20-step process for states to apply for funding for rural broadband internet. It is because the Republican Party wouldn't vote for that bill unless it had all that red tape in there. Okay, Ace says, is it true that Israel said it would do something to Norway and FIFA? I don't remember, Ace. That sounds really familiar, but that definitely, I don't remember the specifics of it. It's Boozy says, but there have been Democratic presidents, and seems like once they all get into office, everything changes for whatever reason. I don't really know what you mean by that. It's Boozy. Like, obviously, things change depending on who the president is, and things generally change for the better under Democratic presidents and worse under Republican presidents. So, riddle me that. Burnett says, "Can anybody challenge the Democrats for governor of Alabama?" I don't know. I think isn't it Bashir who's the governor of Alabama? Isn't he really popular? Felix says, "Do you think James Tallarico will win his race?" I don't really truck with predictions, but he seems like a cool guy, so I hope he wins. Bone Lee 18 says, "United we stand, divided we fall. F the two-party system." The two-party system is not the reason why we are so divided. It is because of the billionaire class and the Republican Party, who are pushing culture war bullshit instead of actually addressing the substance of their policies or the lack thereof. It's Boozy says our current economy started to decline when under a Democratic president. No, incorrect. It's Boozy. It started to decline at the end of the Trump administration because he was so fucking incompetent that he mishandled the COVID pandemic so that it spread around the globe, fucking over supply chains, increasing demand by decreasing supply. Additionally, he started the first round of his trade war at the end of his first term, which meant that prices started going up for American citizens and started causing inflation and a lack of certain resources like lumber, so we could build less housing. A lot of these problems that were started under the Trump administration really hit their stride during the Biden administration. But there was nothing the Biden administration did during the first year that led to all of the inflation that was happening during the first year. In fact, the Biden administration brought inflation down from 9% to 2.4%, which is where economists say it should be. And everything else was going up. Stock market was going up, unemployment was going down, everything was going good. And then Trump got back in and inflation started going back up again. I would also argue that it is the Republican policy of allowing hypermonopolization that allowed things like greedflation to exist. Shawnee Flytrap says, "How is North Carolina agreeing to bend the knee to the administration going to impact people here?" I mean, anywhere that the Trump people acquiesce to the Trump administration, bad things follow. Because when you acquiesce to a bully, they don't stop there; they just keep on asking for things. Stan says, "This is awesome. Thank you, Stan. Ecuadorian, I see your question over there, but give me a hot second. Let me get through some of these." Jimbo Mills says, "Is it Kamala's fault that I can't get a girlfriend?" No, it is not. Johnny Flytrap says, or did that one. John Bartley says, two-party system is manipulated by billionaires to divide and prevent common sense solution. That is accurate, John Bradley. Ken Graham says, "So with your statement that things are better under a Democratic president, Carter versus Reagan." So I am not prepared, Ken Graham 7, to make this argument right now. My expertise in American politics gets worse and worse the further into the past that I get to go. But I've learned a lot about the Reagan administration and a lot about politics from 1980s on. I have a suspicion that a lot of the issues that we were experiencing during the Carter administration were not his fault, and that he was unfairly raked over the coals for things that were going to happen under any president during that 4 year period. But I'm not prepared to make that argument with specifics right now. That's just a suspicion that I have because Jimmy Carter seems like a really good guy, and I don't think that he was incompetent. I think that there were influences that were brought beyond his control. That's my guess. Gangram says, "So it's the history of now, not the past." Don't know what that means. Cooper says, "Thoughts about the discourse between Israel, JFK about nukes before he got shot?" I don't know anything about that. Honestly, sounds a little conspiracy theory-ish to me. Buffalo Trucker says, "What red tape do the Republicans require for rural broadband?" Okay, so there is an interview between Ezra Klein and Jon Stewart where they talk about all the various steps that you needed to take in order to apply for funding to expand access to rural broadband that was passed during the Biden administration. And it was a bipartisan bill, which meant that they needed to get 10 Republicans on board. And Ezra Miller and his writing buddy ascribed all of that red tape to the Democratic Party. But in an interview later with Mehdi Hassan, the co-author admitted that, oh yeah, all that red tape actually was a stipulation by the Republican Party in order to sign on to the bill. And so I would recommend checking out a YouTube video, Google Mehdi Hassan, and the phrase "we got it wrong," I think is the title of that video. So go ahead and check that out. But as with everything, if you don't want to Google it and you just send me a DM, I will send that to you as well. Felix says, "With Medicaid being cut, what kind of criteria are they cutting people off?" So they're going to start with people that are otherwise able-bodied but are currently not working. And, I guess they'll just go down the list of people that they don't like. I wouldn't put it past this administration to cut Medicare, Medicaid benefits for people that have voted for Democrats in the past. Cooper says, why shouldn't APAC have to register as a foreign lobby just like everyone else? So APAC gets all of their money from American billionaires, and they also say that they are not lobbying for the government of Israel. They are just lobbying for the relationship between Israel and America. And I find that to be pretty thin, but it seems like it is a loophole that is working for them. Let's see here. Mello says Watergate today wouldn't even make the news. I mean, Trump has done things that are 1,000 times worse than Watergate. He's done 1,000 things that are 1,000 times worse than Watergate. You know. Rod O says children need free lunch in school. I agree with that. Jack, good to see you again. Did Trump truly send hostages home, or is he taking credit for someone else's work? So the answer is kind of yes and no. Jack, the deal that Trump used in order to get the hostages back is one that was created during the Biden administration. And for 1,000 reasons, the Biden administration was not able to get Netanyahu to agree to it. There's a lot of shenanigans and chicanery going on behind the scenes there. I think Trump 100% deserves credit for getting the hostages home and for getting Palestinians who were unlawfully detained by the IDF released back into Palestine. The thing that he is taking credit for, though, is bringing peace to the Middle East, which has not happened yet at all. I'm also worried about a lot of this deal has there's a lot of places where this deal can go wrong. I do not believe that it was Trump's negotiating genius that was able to get this across the finish line. I believe he lucked out through a confluence of factors and bad faith alliances. But that's people are going to write entire series of books about what's been going on in Israel Palestine for the last 3 years. Okay, I also think it's a little rich that that it was his policies and his State Department that essentially caused October 7th to happen, and now he's going to come in there and claim that he, after 2 years, finally cleaned up the mess that he made. It's like, fucking miss me with that shit. All right, Zach says Trump is the best president ever. That's not a question, so you are out of here. See you later. Block you. All right, let's get to Ecuadorian baseball pitchers question. Why doesn't France intervene between America and Venezuela to try to get them both to come to the table and get them to quit arguing like 5-year-olds fighting over candy? I don't know what France has done to try to get that fighting to stop. I don't know how effective they would be because it's not like Macron has a ton of leverage over Trump. I don't think that Trump likes Macron. I think that that Trump pushes the European leaders around, and as much as they have been acquiescing to him, they have proved that they are fine with him pushing them around. So yeah, I don't see him really having the ability to make that change. Maybe if there was a strong coalition of European countries that could maybe exert some influence over him, but at the moment, I don't really see it. Rod O says Biden didn't bankrupt 6 casinos. That's accurate. Jay says love that we curse constantly while having a near fully gray beard. These grays mean that I am allowed to curse. I have earned my ability to curse. Every gray hair in my beard is a curse that I had to hold my tongue on when I was a younger man because I needed to be upright and proper. But now that I'm old, fuck that bullshit. Fuck it right up our butts. Bit Nevo says if Democrats regain power, do you foresee them doing anything shady to avoid being primary? I think individual Democrats have done things like that in the past. The DNC has done things like that in the past. And I am hoping that people can get organized enough that we vote in the primaries for the kinds of Democrats that have more of a moral foundation than doing shit like that. But yeah, I would still take a centrist Democrat who did shady shit to win their primary over a Republican who is trying to make shady shit more legal so that they can get away with even more garbage. Diego Vargas says, why are corporations allowed to increase the price just because they want to? Because there's no real competition in the market anymore. There are so many companies that have total market share, and hyper monopolization means that basically everything is owned by 5 massive companies, and it is the Republicans' policy of laissez-faire hyper-monopolization that has allowed us to get to this place. Kangram says, you have a podcast based on your opinion and not facts such as history. Learn your history. I know enough history, Kangram. If you think I'm inaccurate about things, send me a DM. Jay says, when you're trying to be informative to potentially kids, maybe tone it down and be respectful. I mean, I think kids are saying these words also, you know. John Bradley says, what should be the DNC number one priority from a policy standpoint when they regain control? Ken Grimm, you're not asking questions. Ask a question or I'm going to boot you. Number one policy priority, I think, has to be bringing back in intergovernment regulatory agencies. So right now, there's no oversight of the Trump administration and ICE. I think that there needs to be some real teeth and consequences for elected politicians doing things that are illegal. Where the current administration is making it okay for politicians to do illegal things, I think the Democratic Party needs to put a fucking kibosh on that. I think they need to cement in some voting protections. I think they need to undo Citizens United. There's like a bunch of stuff. Kimberlina says, I don't think kids are his target audience. That is accurate. Sorry for Tomorrow says, Israel bullies until it blows back on them and then claims victimhood. That is accurate. But also, let's talk very specifically about the Israeli government, where the people of Israel are not generally doing that. Kangrim says, that's what liberals do. You prove my point. Thanks. You didn't ask a question again, Kangrim, so you're out of here. Congratulations. It's a simple rule, guys. Ask a question, don't get booted. That's all you got to do. Dusty Boots No Filter says, if Trump has full immunity, why is he blaming Democrats for tying up the progress? I'm not really sure what you mean. How does full immunity connect to blaming Democrats for tying up the progress? Can you give me some more specifics, Dusty Boots? Gooter says, what are your thoughts on AOC's build? I don't know. Is that a specific game that you're talking about? Like, does she have a mage build or a strength build or something? Sorry for Tomorrow says, yeah, definitely not putting it on the people as a whole. Excellent. Sorry for Tomorrow. Muzz King says, not our responsibility to parent other people's children. Accurate. A Monkey says, why are we giving $20 billion to Argentina? Because we want to support other right-wing authoritarian governments. And so Trump is fucking selling out American farmers so that he can help his libertarian buddy who kisses his ass. J4, Dusty Boots No Filter says, should he know the government? He doesn't have to follow any rules? ? Oh, that's a really good question, Dusty Boots. So could Donald Trump do something illegal to stop the shutdown because he has immunity from the Supreme Court? Yes, with a caveat. Number one, he would have to want to reopen the government. He's not really suffering any political pain from the government not being open. The government not being open right now means that he gets to fire people. The government isn't working anymore. There's no more regulations for stopping his billionaire buddies doing whatever the fuck they want. And there was another point I was going to make about the shutdown being good for him. And the House and the Senate can no longer vote on releasing the fellow with the island files. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know if he's motivated to open up the government. Also, it seems as though he is shaking in his boots a little bit regarding the power of the judiciary, because he will go up to the line of illegality and then sometimes like take it back a little bit, and then sometimes he will blow right past it. Like, he really is playing a game of chicken with the Supreme Court, where they're like on board with like 99% of the shit that he does, but every once in a while they're like, but you can't do that, and he's like, but can I? You know? So, it's a yeah, it's a delicate dance of corruption and bullshit. Jay says, when we curse, it shows more emotion and less being straight facts, right? No, I don't agree with that at all. John Bradley says, keeping it shut down until we move on to something else. Yeah, that's what they want. Dusty Boots says, so everyone should know that he prefers it shut down because he has the power to reopen it. 100%, Dusty Boots. 1000%. You nailed it. Devin says he's proving he doesn't care about women. We knew that about Donald Trump for a long time. Jack says, you get 5 minutes alone with Trump. What are you asking him? I'm not going to ask him shit. I'm just going to spend the entire time calling him a piece of shit and trying to hurt his feelings. Family is Forever says, and it's not just Trump, it's the Heritage Foundation of the administration, which I believe are the same. You are 100% accurate there, Family is Forever. There's, the Heritage Foundation, the Federalist Society, and Stephen Miller are our shadow government right now. Let's see here. Eugene Hamilton says he's not even suitable to hold office. That is accurate. Let's see here. Erica Jane says, should we celebrate President Trump for the peace and the ceasefire? I think that we can celebrate the hostages being home. I think we can celebrate the Palestinians being released by the IDF. But there's no peace in the Middle East right now. We're at the, you know, there's so many things that can go wrong. There's so many opportunities that Netanyahu will have to continue doing atrocities to the people of Palestine. I do not believe that we are there yet. Let's see here. Sonia DeBoss says, "Yeah, Jared, he would lie anyways." Yeah, that's true. Eugene Hamilton says presidential immunity shouldn't even be a thing. Completely agree with that. And you can thank our extremely right wing Republican Supreme Court for that decision. One reason of a billion why we should be unelecting every Republican at every opportunity. Alien says, "Do you support a politician like Mamdani in New York?" Yes, I do. Erica Jane says, "Did Netanyahu seek to destroy Charlie Kirk?" I do not. I have not seen any credible evidence to suggest that is true, Erica. Scott Clower says, "Coors helped start the Heritage Foundation. Worst crime than their shitty beer." I didn't know that, Scott. So Coors can go fuck itself. That's for darn sure. Okay, Shiny Flatchap says, "It's also only meant to last 60 days, and they broke it within hours." That is accurate. Cflon says, "The most real answer I have heard to the question." Ooh, what did I say, Cflon? And good to see you again. Eugene Hamilton says, "That just shows rules for thee, but not for me." That is accurate. Christian says, "Do you think the Democrats should give us a good candidate for presidency next term?" So the Democrats don't give us candidates. We vote on them in the primary. I don't care for this narrative that the DNC picks and chooses who they want to run for president, because it is just wildly inaccurate, and it makes it seem like the DNC is this like powerful secret organization that is somehow managing to pull all these strings and yet loses more than half of nationwide elections. Okay, scrolling down to the bottom of the TikTok comments, Kimberlina says, "Has SM been in public since his plenary freeze?" I don't know. I haven't seen Stephen Miller lately. Armor says, "Was Obama or Biden more corrupt?" I don't think either of them were corrupt. Quincy says, "Just get informed." I'm pretty informed. John Bradley says, "Is there a silver lining to the DNC being the minority? Is it opportunity for a changing of the guard?" Potentially. I will still take Donald Trump not being able to seat judges. I will still take Donald Trump not being able to staff the EPA and the FEC, and not letting Elon Musk steal all of our social security numbers and our banking information, building concentration camps. Like potentially there's a silver lining in, a tactical retreat by the Democratic Party, but I think we're still a net positive by a long shot. Dusty Boots says, "Did Hillary win the negotiation by get 2,420? Did H win the negotiation by get?" I thought H meant Hillary, but maybe you mean George H.W. Bush. I'm not really sure what that question means. Christian says, "Biden was corrupt who took money from Ukraine." That is inaccurate, Christian. Please get your news from other sources. That has been debunked over and over, and a bunch of Republican-led investigations have turned up no evidence. Oh, Hamas. Did Hamas win the negotiation by getting 2,000 for 20? I do not believe that Hamas won the negotiation. Um, their only security assurance in the negotiation is that Donald Trump has to continue putting pressure on Netanyahu to stop doing war crimes in genocide in Palestine. And I don't think that that's really like a strong assurance. He's not a very reliable human being. Erica Jane says, "What should Americans be the most afraid of right now?" Probably the way that the Trump administration is using the Justice Department to go after their enemies, the way that they are talking about people that disagree with them as being the enemy within, as being this insidia Antifa. The reason why they've decided to name Antifa, which is an organization that does not exist, as a terrorist organization, is so that they can just point at anybody that they don't like and say, "You're Antifa, you're a terrorist." I think that is probably the most concerning thing, is that any one of us can be next. And so we all have to be doing the work to stand up for who ICE and the Trump National Guard people are going after, because we could be next. First they came for the communists, et cetera, et cetera. Jay says, "What is your stance on extreme left and extreme right violent threats?" So I condemn all violence, political and otherwise, in the strongest possible language. I do not condone it even a little bit. The base of both the left and the right, they do have a lot of really shitty rhetoric on both sides, but I'm not as concerned about that. What I am concerned with is what do the people with the biggest mouthpieces say? What do the content creators and the reporters and the elected officials on the right say that either incentivizes or incites violence and division versus what the people on the left, elected politicians, reporters, content creators, etc. And there's no contest. It is the thought leaders on the right that are causing this increase in political violence and political division. There's no question. There's absolutely zero question. You cannot find me a an elected Democrat or a popular Democratic, thought leader, whatever, who has had any rhetoric that has been as inciting and divisive as what people like Donald Trump and Alex Jones and Elon Musk and the Daily Wire and fucking all the ding dongs over on Fox News have said. Quincy says thoughts on the U.S. giving $20 billion to Argentina, but soybean farmers can't sell to China. It was a stupid thing for Trump to do. It was stupid. It was corrupt. He has the legal authority to do it, I guess, but he shouldn't have because Argentina just completely fucked us, and we're giving them $20 billion so they can fuck us. Seems kind of stupid. Also, $20 billion for Argentina, but we can't afford cancer research in this country anymore. $20 billion for Argentina, but we can't have hospitals in rural areas or drug treatment facilities or investing in public education and shit like that. Like, really? That's what we're doing instead? Okay. Voodoo Witch says, what do you think of the Insurrection Act? I don't know too much about it. I don't think that we're anywhere close to needing to declare it. It is one of the many mechanisms that Trump is going to try to use to become a fascist dictator of America. Mitch Serlin says, have you heard the rumors Trump is floating about having Barron run TikTok after the deal completes? It kind of tracks with all the corruption and nepotism that the Trump administration has been doing since his first term. We have long suspected that anybody that buys TikTok is going to be pushing Trump's agenda, and they are going to be blocking, left-leaning accounts. They are going to be shadow banning left-leaning accounts. It's not going to be great, regardless of if it is Barron or Peter Thiel who is running it. It's going to be somebody that is going to try to more effectively turn it into what X has become, which is basically just a right-wing propaganda channel. Ijal says, how you doing? Explain deeper what is happening between PAC and AFG. I don't know what those things are. User a bunch of numbers says, you know what? I think Barron, for his future in this country, he should get away from the Trumps. From what they said, Trump is not his father anyways. He would be better off with a real father. I don't know too much about the kid. I heard some reports that he was mutilating small animals, which is like serial killer shit. So I don't think that anybody in that family has a clean conscience anymore. Ijal says Pakistan and Afghanistan. Oh, I see. I don't know what have there been any recent developments between Pakistan and Afghanistan? Sorry, I cannot speak upon that. Rosalind says, have you heard that it would be called MAGA talk? Oh my god, so fucking stupid. That's so fucking stupid. I don't know if that's true, but if it is, good lord. Unfucking believable. That's so fucking stupid. Okay. Okay. Jay says, what about Hillary's deplorables comments? Hillary calling a certain group of Trump supporters deplorables is not even fucking close to Donald Trump telling his supporters, beat the shit out of protesters, I'll bail you out of jail if you do. It's not even fucking close to Donald Trump pardoning over 1,000 insurrectionists who were beating cops within an inch of their life. Between Elon Musk saying that the left is the party of murder. Not even fucking close, Jay. Not even close. Okay, scrolling down to the bottom of TikTok comments. Let's see here. Mama Polkadok says, did he really win? A lot of statistical evidence is saying that he did win, sincerely. I'm waiting to see how the Rockland County case turns out for potentially if any votes were changed. Okay. Jessica says it'll be called TikTok USA and will be a different app, not just renamed. Everyone has to download. Is that real, Jessica? Quincy says thoughts on shutdown and not certifying new congresswoman. The Democratic Party, I think, is doing the right thing in forcing the shutdown. They are fighting to keep our healthcare costs from spiraling out of control, and the Republican Party is saying we don't care. We would rather hurt Americans either through a shutdown or by tripling their health insurance costs. Take your pick, Democrats. It's up to you. Where Democrats are like, we will take the short term pain of a shutdown if it means that Americans won't be priced out of being able to get health care. The Trump administration doesn't give a shit about Americans getting hurt, and so they're fine with this shutdown lasting as long as they want it to. And they are going to try to spin it to be the Democrats' fault. And even if it's ineffective, they will still have gotten what they wanted, which is delaying releasing the fellow with the island files, firing a bunch of people from the government, hobbling agencies, making the government less efficient and work less. That's just the Republican ethos: is get elected, prove the government works terribly by being really shitty at your job, which then proves your point that the government shouldn't exist, and then wash and repeat. Alrighty, scrolling down the bottom, J4 says the Heritage Foundation is actively trying to dismantle the American Bar Association. Why? So that they can install more extremist ideologue judges that have not passed the bar or have not been accredited by the American Bar Association. Anna says, do you support LGBTQ? Yes, I do. Let's see here. Olive Oil and Zatar says, what about Article 2, Section 4? Use this section in the Constitution to impeach the president and government. I am unaware of anything that citizens could do to bring about impeaching the government or the president. I'm pretty confident, Olive, that the only mechanism that we have for impeachment has to be through those elected to Congress. Kyle says, man, you need to go read before you have your own little show. I do tons of reading, Kyle. What do you think I am saying that is inaccurate? Go ahead and put it in the comments, or you can, you can go ahead and send me a DM. Randy or RJ says, right where he belongs, the White House, Rena. I don't know what that's supposed to mean. Ebrod says, can the military step in at any time and take Donald Trump and the administration? No, that would be a military coup, and we frown upon those. Bruce says, I am the Senate. Oh no, please do not order 66 me. Frigid Witch says, what reasons did Trump give for the shutdown, like specific problems with the budget? So Trump is saying that Democrats want to do the shutdown because we want healthcare for illegal aliens and trans for everybody, and men and women's sports. And all of those are lies, obviously. Jessica says, a military coup can occur, but there's literally nobody that wants that. It's not impossible, but it's insane. Jessica is accurate. Ebrod says, why do we frown upon military coups? This is genuine. A military coup would be the military saying that the democratic government of America is invalid. It sets a dangerous precedent that if whoever's in charge of the military does not like what the government is doing, then that is cool if they do this. It means more military in American streets, which is possibly escalatory. There could be a lot of protests and knock-on violence based on that. We're talking about curfews. Who does the military decide gets to stay in power is not a question that we want answered, shall we say. Okay, Cuz 808 says, do you think children should be able to transition or wait until 21? So Cuz 808, I am not an expert in children's mental health or sexual identity. What I will say is that I have heard from experts in this, and according to them, a child can go through a very lengthy process of gender reassignment that is slow and cautious and gives the child many opportunities to back out and go back to being the sex that they were assigned at birth. And that when we allow children to go through that process, they become better. They become happier and healthier and more confident. And so, while I understand the apprehension of allowing a child to do something that is potentially very difficult to reverse, just based on how, children do a lot of stupid things, the process by which a child does do that is very careful and is not something that is rushed and has a very high rate of success. And so for those reasons, I am for it. Okay. Thank you, Magaverse. Good to see you again. Thank you, Saint Monkey. I appreciate you being here. All right, Ecuadorian ball player. Why doesn't Japan speak up and tell Caroline Levitt that her only MAGA deplorables are the only people who want to hear what she says and that she's annoying and needs to stop? Like, for fuck's sake, Japan, speak up, call up the Trump administration, do something. I mean, all of these countries that are not standing up to Trump, they are just taking the path of least resistance. Like they recognize how powerful America is, both as a leader of the economy and culture and markets. And as we are declining in international relevance, I believe that power will wane a little bit. But it's the exact same with all these massive corporations that are acquiescing to Donald Trump, which is they don't know how far this coup is going to go. They do not know how far down into fascist authoritarianism we are going to go. And so they're making a bet that if things go very, very bad in America, that potentially they will be able to survive. Okay, Jessica says childhood transition is an issue that is 70-30-ish public opinion wise in favor of not allowing. Jessica, this is one of those ones where I'm like, it's maybe the general public does not know what childhood transition is like. I think that people have an inaccurate idea of a kid going, I feel like a girl today, and then doctors being like, sweet, cut off the dick right now. Let's do it. Let's put some tits on this kid. But that's just like not what's happening. And so I think that where we need to be careful on the left is being really clear and articulate about the things that we believe. And if it is bad for kids, then we are against it. And if it is good for kids, then we are for it. And all of the data suggests that allowing children to undergo a lengthy transition process is better for them than not allowing it. All right. Eli says, do you think the border problem was Trump's fault or Biden's? I mean, the border problem it's been a problem for a long time for a lot of different reasons through a bunch of different presidents. So while I would not put it explicitly on Trump or Biden, what I would say is that it continued being a problem because of Donald Trump, because Donald Trump wanted it to be a problem, because the Republican Party wanted it to be a problem, where the Democrats and the Republicans worked on a bill together during the Biden administration to address some of the border issues. And Donald Trump called up the Senate Republicans and told them not to vote for the bill that they wrote because he wanted to be able to run on immigration as an issue in the 2024 election. Eli says, didn't Republicans shoot down Biden's border bill? Just curious. No, they literally wrote it. It was a compromise bill. Reform Steven says, and can you give an overview of what AIPAC even is/does? Asks, why doesn't AIPAC register and what do they do? Short version, AIPAC doesn't register as a foreign agent because they are funded by Americans and also because they say that they are not lobbying for Israel, but for the relationship between Israel and America. It's a loophole. They're getting away with it, What does AIPAC do? They try to get more right-wing politicians elected, and that means getting Republicans elected over Democrats, but it also means getting progressive Democrats to lose their primaries against more centrist Democrats. They're extremely well-funded organization. They are very effective at getting Democrats to lose their elections if those Democrats are too critical of Israel. They're bad. I think that we should do away with all lobbying organizations, and that includes AIPAC. David said, why is the only thing Dems and Republicans can agree on is sending money to Israel? So there are fewer Dems that are voting to send money to Israel than there are Republicans that are voting to not send money to Israel. So Democrats are better on this issue than Republicans are. Oh, what to do? Ecuadorian. Unfortunately, I feel underprepared to answer all of these foreign policy questions of yours. It really is American domestic policy that I am an expert in, but I'll do my best where with your questions are concerned. Okay, Reform Steven says, is there a way as voters we could force them to register? The only thing that we can do to exert any kind of power on lobbying organizations is to not believe their propaganda and vote for the people that they are trying to unseat. So Heritage, Federalists, AIPAC, they are all trying to get Republicans and centrist Democrats elected. And so if we can get progressives to win the primary and then get those same progressives to win the general, then we can start defanging all of these lobbying organizations and potentially getting AIPAC to register as a foreign lobbying organization because they are lobbying on behalf of the Israeli government for all intents and purposes. But yeah, that is the only mechanism. It is voting, it is organizing, it is recruiting. That is one reason of a billion why I think we need to replace every elected Republican with a Democrat. I don't think the Republican Party has deserved re-election for a really long time, and particularly the party that is allowing the president to have a fucking crypto coin, to accept $400 million bribes from Qatar, and now we are their on-call military for some fucking reason, sending $20 billion to Argentina when American farmers are starving, increasing everybody's electricity costs by giving AI carte blanche to build their fucking data centers, building concentration camps, ignoring people's civil rights and basic humanitarian rights. Fucking barbaric, corrupt, illegal, unconstitutional, fascist, like what are we fucking doing here, guys? Like, I don't give a shit if you don't like the Democrat in that race. Are they gonna do that shit? The answer is no. All right. Alrighty, everybody. Excellent questions today. Things have calmed down a little, so we're gonna start wrapping things up. So get your final questions in. Jessica says Trump is on video saying he'll connect some foreign leader with Don Jr. And Eric. Yeah, Jessica, 100%. Kimberly says potential or thoughts on sealing elected officials' investments. I'm for it. Elected officials should 100% not be able to trade stocks. It is the Republican Party that is currently blocking that legislation from passing. It is bipartisan legislation, more Democrats than Republicans, of course, and Republicans have control of the Senate and the House. And so if they wanted it passed, they would pass it, but they ain't. So there you go. Alrighty. Thank you again, everybody, for being here, for the questions, for the comments, for the likes, the shares, the gifts. I appreciate all the support that you guys give me. It is your support that allows me to keep doing this show. And I think the show is helping. I hope it's helping. I'm trying to help. That's my whole fucking vibe here. If there are questions that I was not able to get to or that you come up with later, do not be shy. You can DM. DMs are open. You can email me through my websites. You can hit me up on my Discord. The Discord is an excellent resource for getting in touch, but also for recommendations for books and for podcasts, and also for volunteer actions that you can take and organizations to work with if you are somebody like me and you see what's going on and you're super worried about it and you want to do something to help. If you want to support the show financially, you can, but you don't have to, of course. I know we're all struggling. But if you want to, I have a Patreon that you can join for as little as $1 a month. If my friend is on here who was telling me that he was having trouble adjusting his amounts, I got your email. I would just say cancel it and do it again. You can also buy stuff from my store. Both of those links are on my bio page. And you can also send gifts and be a super subscriber on TikTok and YouTube and Twitch and stuff. I don't really know all the various cute ways that you can send money, but I know that they are plentiful. And if there are things that you guys want me to be doing or making available to you, either on, TikTok or Twitch or YouTube, let me know. I'm trying to expand my reach so I can get this message in front of as many people as I can, because again, I think it's helping. That's why I do it. What else? I want to be a resource for you guys. I want to be a resource for you becoming more engaged and educated and activated. And I want you to be able to recruit other people to the cause as well. And if you can use me as a resource for doing all those things, I want you to use me and abuse me. I want you to use me until I am all used up. And lastly, I just want to say from the bottom of my heart that I really hope that you all are hearing me and that you will do the work, because we need more people to do the work. The work is working. We just need more people to do it. And if we get people to do the work, then we win. We can have a better fucking country. We don't have to fucking live like this. I would love to be able to trust the water that is coming out of my faucets to not be giving me lead poisoning. I would love to be able to trust the air that I am breathing to not be giving me lung cancer. I would love to trust that a shooter is not going to go and shoot a bunch of kids in a school. I would love to be able to trust that the government is doing things that are for the people instead of just what is good for Donald Trump's pocketbook. And we can have that government, guys. We can have that kind of country, but we have to work for it. And here's the thing: if you ever watched a movie or a TV show about authoritarian governments once they're already in place, and the only way to do resistance is through like spy networks, and we have to have like code words and shit like that, like that's harder work than what we can currently do right now. The whispering is harder. The constant looking over your shoulder is harder. Me being able to do this show here with my real ass name and shit like that could potentially go away. And that will be harder. So we need to be screaming our fucking heads off now, or we will only be able to whisper in the future. Okay, everybody. Let's see here. Any final things? Oh yeah, no King's protest this Saturday. No King's protest this Saturday. No King's protest this Saturday. Everybody go to the No King's protest this Saturday. Okay. Allie says I told my Facebook friend to watch you. Oh, nice. Well, I hope they are. I hope they are on TikTok or Twitch on YouTube, because that is the only places that I'm streaming at the moment. Dusty Boots No Filter says, one last question. How could we ever stop Trump if he has immunity? It's over. It's not over. We, the people, have all the power. And if we get 3.5% of the population to join our movement, then we win. And there is nothing that Trump can do to stop us. He can't send the military after us, because the military will be looking out at crowds that could have their wives or husbands or children or neighbors in them. And so they won't do shit. This is what we see. Erica Chenoweth, a political scientist, has crunched the numbers on this. So yeah, it's up to us. It's up to us. We can do it. Nobody else is coming to save us. Only us can do it. Okay, scrolling down. Thank you, Z Sid. Poppy Harlow says RFK has done irreversible damage to the scientific community. I mean, no damage is truly irreversible. It's just going to take he has done a ton of damage to the scientific community. And now there's fucking measles outbreaks and fucking whooping cough and the plague. And so you can thank our fucking idiot Health and Human Services Secretary for that fucking bullshit. Dusty Boots No Filter says, specifically how? Do you mean in the movement or in the moment, Dusty Boots? Tone says, what is your opinion on Spanish politics? I know almost nothing about it. Jim Allen says, yeah, you are gaslighting. No, I'm not. And also, that's not a question, Jim Allen. If you want to stay, you needed to ask a question. Okay, let's see here. Poppy Harlow says, do you think there will be a modern Nuremberg trials prosecuting Pam Bondi, Trump, Kash Patel? There will be if we are able to replace Republicans in government, because the Republican Party is never going to do that. It is only serious, adult, responsible politicians that will do that. And right now, the Democratic Party has a fucking monopoly on serious, adult, responsible politicians. Dusty Boots No Filter says, what does 3.5% of the population have to do inside the movement to stop a leader with no restrictions? Okay, so this is what I call the work, Dusty Boots No Filter. And we have to get a lot of people to do it, and we have to do all of it. That is the only way that the movement works. And so here's what we do. We need to talk to people in person, in real life. We need to talk to our friends, our family, our neighbors, our coworkers. We need to make sure that they're not currently believing any misinformation. We need to make sure that they are prepared to vote, that they have everything they need to be able to vote, and that they're going to be voting for Democrats. They need to have an accurate idea of what our current Republican government is doing and the reasons why they should be voting against them en masse. If those people are living in a state that has a lot of voter restrictions, then we need to do the work of making sure that they are able to vote, with rides or helping them get IDs and stuff like that. We need to be putting pressure on our current elected representatives at the state and local and federal level, where we need to make sure that our states are prepared to have free and fair elections should Donald Trump try to do some shit like sending the military into Democratic areas. We need to put pressure on companies by boycotting and striking and calling their offices and doing the kind of nonviolent resistance that costs them money. We need to make it more expensive for giant corporations to not acquiesce than to not acquiesce. We need to join groups that are already doing this work, like Indivisible and Run for Something and Vote Save America. There are already boots on the ground. We just need more people doing that work. And then there's creative things that individuals can do. Like, what power do you have? Like, where do you work? Who do you know? Can you do malicious compliance? Can you gum up the works of this authoritarian regime? Can you help put pressure on somebody who owns a massive corporation to stop feeding ICE or stop, renting them cars or stuff like that? There's a lot of things that need to get done, and we all have to do this work, and that's how you do it. Dusty, money talks. Maybe we should strike against the corporations. 100%, Dusty. That is one of many things that we can do, but we got to do it. Samurai Destroyer says, "What do you think of religion?" I think it's fine. If somebody wants to have a religion, that's completely up to them. All right, everybody. It's an hour. Oh, fuck me. I'm late. I have a lunch date. I gotta get out of here, everybody. See you later. Goodbye. Take care. Be good to each other. I'll see you tomorrow. Same bad time, same bad channel. Goodbye. 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 Goodbye.